I think we can make a start. Welcome everybody to this online open day. I'm really sorry that I can't get to see you in person, but thank you so much for logging in today and looking at the presentations that we had online in the morning, and also thank you for coming to the sessions. Before we start, just a couple of housekeeping things. The session is actually going to be recorded and it's going to be posted online afterwards. So I would encourage you to keep your cameras off and also your microphones off as well. Otherwise your picture would then appear in the recording, which is going to get posted later. If you have any questions whatsoever, I would encourage you to use the chat function on Zoom. Just put your question into chat. Adam is going to be keeping an eye on the chat, and we'll get to your question either as we're going through, or if you have any questions at the end, then you can actually save them up and ask at the end. But I hope that's very useful. It's a shame that we're sort of meeting online, because I think one of the most remarkable things about the RNCM is the atmosphere and the friendliness of the place. And I think you can only really get a full sense of that when you walk through the college refectory, and there's a real buzz, there's a real vibrancy about the college, and there's something which is always happening at the time. As I say, it's a very friendly college and it's a very supportive environment in which to study. I hope that you've enjoyed some of the clips that you saw today. The pianists that you heard Maxim Kinosov, who was playing Brahms Paganini variations. Maxim is on the threshold of a really big international career. He's won prizes in the Hastings competition, the Sheepdrome competition, Cantu, Viotti, many competitions. This year, he was also taken on by the Kirkman Concert Society in London, and he gave a full-length evening recital at the Wigmore Hall. He hails from Moscow in Russia. Closer to home, you also got to hear Luke Jones, and Luke also has won many international prizes, most notably in the Maria Canals competition in Barcelona. He's also appeared as a soloist with the BBC National Orchestra of Wales, and is one of our gold medal winners. And he comes from Wrexham, so really quite close to the RNCM. There was also a nice bit of footage there from Alexandra Dariesco. She's having a hugely successful career. She has a show called The Nutcracker and I, which is literally played to thousands throughout the world. She graduated from the RNCM about 10 years ago, but she's performed with the Liverpool Philharmonic, the Royal Philharmonic, the Moscow Philharmonic, the Detroit and Houston Symphony Orchestras. And so her career is really going full pelt around the world. Other recent graduates that we've had who have had very illustrious careers include Alexander Panfilov. He was the first prize winner of the Top of the World competition, the Rina Salagallo competition, the high-end competition, the Hastings competition, and the Mottram competition, all first prizes. And now he's enjoying a very active performing career. One thing that I did stress very early on in my presentation this morning is the importance of pursuing your own portfolio career. And that career can have many different ingredients. It's most likely you'll play recitals, maybe concertos, chamber music, accompaniment. Teaching is also very important. You might go on to be a ballet repetiteur or an opera repetiteur. And the way that the course is structured, it's structured to cater for the individual needs of the students. I should now like to introduce the people who are in the chat room with us today, starting with Nina. Nina is a first-year undergraduate. And then we've got Keelan. Give us a wave, Keelan. Keelan is a third-year undergraduate. And then we've got Jasmine, who's a fourth-year undergraduate, on the joint course. Louis, who is in his final year as a postgraduate. Helen, who has been teaching at the RNCM for over 20 years and was deputy head of keyboard for 14 years. We've got Adam, who is the new deputy head of keyboard studies and who's only been with us for about 2 months. And last, and by no means least, we've got Benjamin Frith, who's had an illustrious solo career and is the pianist in the highly successful Gould Piano Trio. So welcome to everybody. I thought we'd start with Nina, and Nina is going to talk a little bit about settling in as a first-year undergraduate, and she'll tell us what made her choose the college and maybe a little bit about life in halls. So over to you, Nina.
Yeah, so I've written like a whole list of things that I want to say, so I'll try and look at the camera as much as possible. But so yeah, I'm a first-year pianist, and I think me choosing the Royal Northern was definitely the right college for me specifically, because I think, as Graham had emphasised, the college itself is so friendly, and the atmosphere and the people, like I've never felt any sort of tension or having to worry about anything. And I think that really helps as a musician, because, you know, you need to practice in a good environment and you feel happy. And I think the RNCM is really perfect for that. I also thought we also had Freshers Week, which was really good because I was able to meet a lot of different people, and we weren't just talking about music, we were talking about other things that we like, which sort of, you know, brought us all together. And yeah, I really enjoyed my first years a lot, and there's so many things that us pianists can do. So you're not just in the practice room, you know, playing the piano all day. There's chamber music, then the piano department has workshops that you have to attend. We have lots of different master classes going on. There are performance classes, and you're also able to, I don't know, set up a duet with a fellow pianist of yours, and then you obviously have your piano lessons, which are they're the most, I feel they're really the most important part of the course. And yeah, I've really been, you know, find it really easy to settle into first year. Of course you have your ups and downs because you're moving on to become sort of like an adult. So instead of having to do, you know, academic homework, you're now having to do the washing and the cleaning, whilst balancing that with your piano practice. But as time goes on, it does get a lot easier, and you get into a really good practice routine. I think first term for me was quite difficult because I was trying to find out how Azimuth worked, which is the booking system we use to get practice rooms. But I think once I had settled in more from second term, I got a really good routine for myself. And if you have any problems, Graham Scott, and at the time when Ashley Wass was our head deputy head, they were both really helpful. And if you had any problems, they sorted it out immediately, really. And I think, as I said, the reason why I chose the RNCM was because of how friendly it was. And you can go into conservatoire, into any audition, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is a nice conservatoire, they were really lovely to me, you know, they asked me questions, they seemed interested in me. But there was something about the RNCM where I thought they were genuinely interested in me, not just as a pianist, but as a person. And I think they do really care a lot about your well-being and mental health. They're not just there for you to just go and play the piano and that's it. Which I think is really important, because you need to be happy where you're studying in order to produce the results that you want. And that's really shown when there were some small problems that I had where I needed some help, and Graham Scott was, he was straight onto it. So yeah, I've really enjoyed my first year. And I think halls, for example, so halls is right next door to the RNCM. It's literally a 1-2 minute walk, 30-second run. And it's so helpful because I think as you're settling into first year, it's nice to live somewhere really close by to college, because not only are the rooms really nice and it's comfortable, I felt really homely, but you're also, you're able to interact with lots of musicians from your year as well, and getting to know people, and it feels like a community in some sort of ways, because I think, you know, having to commute from, I don't know, half an hour away from college can be quite difficult, especially in your first year. So being in halls was really, really helpful for that. And the fact that you can wake up 5 minutes before going to a lecture, or I shouldn't say, but even like a piano lesson sometimes, that's also really nice as well. I think sometimes it made me a little bit lazy, but I think that's the only negative side to things, really. But apart from that, I've really been able to settle in perfectly. So, I mean, I'm not just saying this because it's the open day or anything. Like, for me, the RNCM is a really lovely, friendly place, and especially the piano department. Yeah, she's very, very, very good. I mean, the conservatoire, not she. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say, really. If you have any questions at all. But yeah, no disappointments.
Thank you very much, Nina. That sort of summed up nicely your first impressions of the RNCM. Keelan, do you want to talk about contemporary piano and pedagogy?
Yeah, absolutely. Contemporary piano is a class that we have ran by Peter Lawson, who is the senior tutor in contemporary piano, but a very broad and eclectic mind. I've done the class religiously since first year, so I've attended each year. It runs each year, and its essential focus, and this is in the words of Peter more than myself, is focusing on broadening your horizons more than anything, and that's by really taking a really kind of loose and holistic view of the word contemporary. So it really stretched the breadth this year, looking at the class, of the 20th century, so that there were people playing Schoenberg, which might be considered quite conservative by many people's taste, and there were people playing you know, the latest things by Adès and composers like this who are still composing to this day. And I think that really helps because it's about broadening your horizons more than anything, and really challenging you. So there are some people, and often a lot, you know, when you just do your conservatoire undergrad auditions, most people play, you know, Bach Prelude and Fugue, a Beethoven Sonata, and then something Chopin, or, you know, lyrical. And so if you're even coming from that relatively limited experience of contemporary music, you can then look at understanding more modern techniques, 12-tone, whatever suits you. So it's a very tailor-made course, which I think is really helpful. This year I played some Thomas Adès. It was a concert paraphrase on one of his operas, and it was a real learning curve, getting used to a lot of the polyrhythms and voice leadings and stuff like this. But it was really worthwhile, and built my playing up a lot, just in the learning experience. So I can't stress how useful this class is. It runs biannually, I believe, and you normally meet once a fortnight. And each year, in April or May, there is a concert where the class can kind of showcase its talents. And it's a really nice event for the SKS community to get behind. The second thing I'd like to talk about, pedagogy, which is something you start in third year. And it's I can't stress how important it is.
Well, we certainly got a sense of how important it is, but possibly not why.
Oh dear, we lost Keelan there in full flight. You're back, Keelan.
Am I back? Am I back? Sorry. Okay, so it's very important. I'm glad you got that bit. The vast majority go on to do it, teach at some point. So to have the kind of you know, foundation and skills in teaching is extremely important, and then to have it tailor-made for a piano teacher is that other level of importance. And the class is done by the wonderful Helen Chrysos, who's here on your screens. Extremely insightful, and kind of this teacher of teachers, grand figure that I hope you'll get to know and enjoy as we have. For the first autumn term, we have these weekly classes that run. You get used to the foundations of teaching, introductions to teaching resources, and a really holistic meaning of what it is to teach, and how to teach, and going beyond what we might think of as, you know, just sitting the child down in front of a piano and pointing to some notes and that sort of thing, you know, to really understand the psychology of what it's like to learn, with things like Dalcroze, which is where you think about using your entire body in a musical and expressive manner. And then in turn, when you're doing that, you suddenly realize how much it improves your own critical thinking about your playing. So not only are you learning how to improve others playing through teaching, but, you know, you improve yourself and build up your own playing. So it's it really can't be stressed enough how useful it is. Oh, and then the second part of the year, sadly it was cut off short this year, obviously due to COVID, but you go into schools and you have this school placement where you're assigned a small student who, you know, to teach from scratch, which at first can seem sort of frightening, but I really do think it's the single most important thing in many ways I've done in college so far. You know, to introduce a child that otherwise probably wouldn't get the you know, the privilege of seeing into what classical music is and what we've all come to love so much. It really is profoundly satisfying and important to do that. That's the other thing. The schools that we go into are schools where the children probably wouldn't have these opportunities that many of us have had. So it's a real public good in that way. You can feel really proud of what you achieve, and not to mention just the sheer experience yourself, which I think is unique to RNCM in the UK, of learning how to teach, which is incredibly important. Yeah. So I think that sums up everything I'd like to cover.
Thank you very much, Keelan. That's great.
Pleasure.
Lots of interesting information there. So moving on to Jasmine, now coming to the end of her final year at the RNCM, being on the super demanding joint course with Manchester University. Do you want to talk about joint course and also the fabulous trio that you have?
Yeah, sure. So I have been on the joint course, and it basically meant that the first 3 years of my time at the RNCM was also spent joint with Manchester University. So you basically do the whole academic degree at the university and then the whole degree of RNCM minus the academic work at the RNCM. So you still have principal study, chamber music, and artist development mainly. I think those are the three things. So it was a busy time in the first 3 years, I won't lie. But I think it's, if you're able to manage your time, if you can't decide, that was what it was for me, if you can't decide between university and music college, whether you want to go into kind of academic side or whether you want to go into performance, then it's a really great option to split your time between the two places. And you get to meet double the amount of people by doing both. So it's a really good opportunity to do that. So if you're interested in joint course, chat to me because I knew about it. Adam's also a great person to chat to about joint course. And chamber music, yeah, so I don't know if any of you were in the chamber music chat earlier, but kind of in a nutshell, really, every pianist gets to do chamber music. And whether you're in a piano trio or piano duo, I think you get put in first year. I was put in a piano trio, which was really great. I mean, we all three of us got on really well. So then it kind of broadened from there and we just did loads of stuff together. Sort of we've gone on and we still want to stick together next year. We're still doing concerts. We've got stuff lined up, different projects as well. And I think also it's important to note, as a pianist, you can accompany people or sort of collaborate with them more. So you, in third year, you do, as part of your techniques, you have to do either duo playing with an instrumentalist or a singer. People are always going to be abundant to play with. People always want to ask you to play for them. But I'd say if you want to take on all those opportunities, say yes to a lot of it, if it won't disturb your principal study. Because it's a really great opportunity to do. So yeah, I think that's everything.
Great, thank you very much, Jasmine. And Louis, second year postgrad, big wide world next year. You were here also as an undergraduate. You've been our wonderful student representative for a number of years now. You've represented the student body absolutely fantastically. So talk us about life as a PG, what made you decide to come back, and also about some of the performance opportunities that you've been involved in during your studies at the RNCM.
Yeah, hello everybody. So I come from Sri Lanka, which is not, well, not on the classical music map really. So when I arrived at the RNCM for my audition, I felt a lot like Nina, because it felt so homely, and I felt like I belonged. So throughout my 4 years, I had so much to learn that when I got to the end of the 4th year, uh, I realized that there is still so much left to learn. And because of how eclectic the RNCM is, I felt that that's the only place I could continue my learning at. Where I think the second most important performance venue in Manchester. And we put on so many concerts, and so many different concerts at that, performances, and people like Dame Patricia Routledge and Graham Norton coming to speak as well. So it's not just classical music, it's world music, and it's great to be a sponge in the RNCM. So I felt like this is where I wanted to be, and so I decided to stay. Since then, I've taken on things that maybe I might have pushed aside a little in my undergrad days. Playing the harpsichord, for instance. Harpsichord continuo is an art. Well, harpsichord playing itself is such a fine art to master, because you can't really use your upper body that much, and you can't play forte the way you might play forte on a piano. And also, most of the time, you get a bass line and a few numbers. So you really, really need to know in rehearsal, you really need to know what's going on around you. So those sorts of skills I wanted to learn, and we have a wonderful historical performance department. And so I've been learning with Roger Hamilton since, and I actually ended up being able to play with the Halle, one of the movements of the Bach Fifth Brandenburg Concerto. And so that was a wonderful opportunity, because, well, they're a great orchestra, and the hall was full. And it's nothing like it. Also, as pianists, we tend to lock ourselves in practice rooms, especially for me, because I had so much to learn. So throughout my undergrad, I spent so much time trying to work on my own playing. And I played with a lot of instrumentalists, but not so much with singers. So that gave me, now, as a postgrad, I was able to hone my leader accompanying skills, my language skills, because you really need to know what you're accompanying, and so I've been working with a lot of singers, and that's been very, very satisfying. Also, I've been able to perform with musicians like Raki Singh and the Manchester Collective. That particular gig was out of this world, really, because we had so much choreography, and a lot of the passages we had to memorize in order to be able to bring the music to life in a different way. It was very theatrical. It was full of all kinds of lighting, so we had to move to do different places, and it made those of us who were involved, and there were about 20 of us, 25 of us, different instruments involved. The Claude Ensemble was involved as well, and so we were actually taught the things that actors are taught in a theater, and that the things like those are very useful to apply as a pianist, even in your solo playing. How you build a program, and then how you present that program to an audience, to a general audience, because our audience is, well, mostly music lovers, and so we have to make sure, it's our duty to ensure that they continue loving the music. And along those lines, I had the opportunity also to be in close contact with the RNCM's programming team. We got to shadow them and see what their thought processes were like. We're, as I said before, very famous for putting on eclectic seasons of performances. And so the rationale behind some of the performances, some of the acts that we put on was very, very interesting to learn from them. And then in turn, apply that to my own recital programming. Yes, opera playing really. I've avoided opera for a long time, and I think the best way to learn an opera is to be involved in it. And of course, I don't sing, I can't, but I do play the piano, and so I gradually got to play orchestral keyboard in many operas. The most recent one, which unfortunately we couldn't put on, we were about to, but we couldn't, was, Keelan and I were sharing that part, and it was a real finger breaker as well as a brain fryer. But you realize that you're the only one that thinks of tempo in that way. You think the tempo is right, but then 12 other musicians and the rest of the stage think, well, you've been slowing down or speeding up or whatever. And so that was really very, very challenging as well as satisfying when you're able to then play in an ensemble so small with a part like Jonathan Dove's Mansfield Park, which is so big. And so for all those reasons, I'm really glad I stayed.
And we're glad you stayed also, Louis. Fantastic. Thank you so much for speaking so warmly about the RNCM. Now over to Helen Christos, who I said had been teaching at the college for over 20 years. She was deputy head of school for 14 years. We're very lucky that Helen has stayed on at the college. She has a wonderful class of students, and her pedagogy classes are much loved by all the students at the college. So over to you, Helen.
Thank you, Graham. Well, welcome everybody. And I want to start by saying I think the students have been absolutely fantastic at the way they have spoken, the quality of what they've said, and yeah, it's very clear, because in a way I was going to start with what makes one stay in an institution for so long, for so many years. I think as teachers, as much as performers, we never stop learning. It's one of my mantras. We never stop learning. So we learn in a way as much from students as they learn from us, is what I feel. So I think what I enjoy so much are the incredibly high standards we have in our institution, in every facet, in every area of the college, whether it's the professional engagements, whether it's, as Louis said, working with the Arts Centre, whether it's Jasmine talks about the chamber music, whether it's, as Keelan talks about, hopefully the pedagogy course, or as Nina says, the many things that are vibrant within the keyboard school that are offered really as soon as you come in as year one students, to be able to learn how to understand about piano tuning. I really keep saying I should go to these classes because they're wonderful. So there's that, is the high standards. For me, absolutely, when I said about the beginning of what one learns from students. For me, it's the quality of our students, because the students, as you probably have gathered, those of you who are watching in today, we've got students who love what they do. They're incredibly motivated. They actually give an enormous amount to us, which means that you want to give back to them, which is fantastic. And around that, we have such a vibrant and innovative community and approach to everything that we do. I've always said that about the RNCM. We never stop still. We never stay in one place. Not that we change for the sake of changing, but we're always looking further for how we can develop. And I think that's how we all keep learning. So as Graham said, I decided I wanted to go back to my teaching for after 14 years, and it's been a wonderful time, both being deputy head, loved every moment of that. And what I've been so thrilled about is I've been able to put on projects, for example, with my students that I've had so much support from the college to do, which has been amazing. So one of the projects, well, the projects I've been interested in has been things like my students all learning a whole book of Bach preludes and fugues and having the opportunity to perform them. We've been able to perform them in lovely spaces at the RNCM. We've been able to perform at Cheetham School of Music. And this year we did an amazing project of Debussy, performing all the Debussy preludes. And as we've said several times today, we were unfortunately cut short because of COVID, but we had 2 wonderful performances and we were extending. So we were going to different places. We'd gone to Cambridge, we were going down to London. And a lot of this, Graham's been fantastically supportive of this project, as has everybody else. And that's not to be underrated, actually, because in a lot of places, I don't believe you would have that sort of level of interest and support, because people realize that you're nourishing everybody's experience. My students are getting the most amazing experiences of going outside of the institution. They're able to absorb really big things like, how do you understand all of our preludes and fugues book 1? Huge things to encounter and to live with and enjoy. And then moving on to pedagogy, as Keelan said, and he's obviously a 3rd year student, so he's actually just done the 2 terms. But within the pedagogy course, what seemed really important right at the beginning when I was invited to undertake the course was to provide practical opportunities alongside tutorial work. And I think, as Keelan said, I think we're probably one of the few, if only one, in the country that offer this extraordinary placement opportunity. So the students in the 3rd year go out into a primary school, work in a primary school for 6 months, teaching, as Keelan said, 1 small pupil. And then in the 4th year, they get to teach 2 students, as it were, as if they were private students, but always under my guidance. So when they leave college, they already have a teaching portfolio. So when they do their CVs, they can already say the experience, the teaching experience they have. Equally, when Graham was talking about the portfolio experience, the portfolio activities and the ways we develop our career pathways, then they're already like jump way ahead of lots of other graduates, because a lot of the students will have the confidence and much more knowledge to get teaching in the 4th year, definitely by postgraduate level. And we have some wonderful sort of situations where we've got alumni students who have got fantastic jobs, head of St. Paul's School, head of Bedford Music Department, people who have actually deputy heads of music colleges in Britain, teaching at junior colleges across the country. And the younger graduates absolutely going out and getting those jobs against really high competition. So it's been something very close to our hearts, because we believe that as pianists, you will be teaching. There are very few people who won't teach, absolutely. So they'll get their performing career, their chamber music, their accompaniment, and their teaching. And one shouldn't underestimate that at this particular time, those musicians that I know that are still managing to earn money are those who are teaching, actually, because so much of everything else has gone at this stage. So it's wonderful to know you have such a backdrop of experience in that. So anyway, I'm delighted to be here today, and I'll hand you back to Graham.
Thank you very much, Helen. That's really interesting information for everybody to have. Moving on to Adam. Adam has been Deputy Head of Keyboard Studies for just 2 months. So I'm not going to land you in it, Adam, and ask for something which you may not have learned as yet, but maybe you want to give us some of your impressions and talk about early music.
Sure, yeah, of course. Well, I mean, the chat is on fire, and I hope my answers to these questions make sense. And you might be thinking, how does Adam know all this stuff if he's only been doing the job for 2 months? And the answer is, I've actually had more familiarity with the college than just the deputy head of keyboard position, because I also teach on the academic course. I promised some of you guys that I'd talk a little bit about this. I mean, music culture and performance, it's essentially music history. I'm a researcher, I'm a performer that specializes in some unusual repertoire. And some of that is early music, so I like to get my hands dirty with forte pianos and harpsichords from time to time, also with contemporary music, and my CDs are all contemporary music based. In Manchester, you get I'd say the biggest clutch of composers in the smallest space, I think, anywhere in the world, and that makes for a really exciting and dynamic place to come and exchange ideas and play new music all of the time. I haven't always been at the RNCM. I left in 2003 and I went off to America to study and then taught in London for about 10 years. But coming back has made me realise quite how special and dynamic that environment is. So music history can really impact your course as a pianist, I would say, just through knowledge of repertoire and the way music is played. Theory as well. Sounds like something you don't necessarily want to do, get your grade 5 and that's your lot. Actually, we make it more interesting because we get you guys to specialise at arrangements. So not necessarily original compositions, but arrangements of tunes that people love and arrangements that you can do in your own way using your own artistic vision. And that can really help you develop your portfolio as a performer. The other thing that helps you develop your portfolio is artist development skills. These are things like CVs, websites, business tools that you guys will need to succeed in a freelance environment, and we'll make sure that your stepping stone between college and career is as easy as possible through the artist development course. So by being deputy head of keyboard, I sort of create a link between the academic and the performance parts of the course. So keep firing your questions at me, and forgive typos and spelling mistakes, 'cause I'm answering them ever so quickly, but anything that's left over at the end, please ask.
Thank you very much, Adam. And thank you for answering to all the information in the chat. Over to Ben. Ben, as I said, has had an illustrious career. He won first prize in the Arthur Rubinstein International Piano Competition back in the very late 80s. And that very much sowed the scenes for a very successful performing career that he combines with teaching and also a lot of chamber music with the Gould Piano Trio. So Ben, maybe just give me your impressions as a tutor and your experiences at the RNCM.
Thanks, Graham. Yes, I came, I think, just before the millennium, and I'd actually never studied at a conservatoire. So I was a little bit of an outsider from that. I didn't really know what a conservatoire was like. And what I love to do when you get there in the morning to teach is walk down the corridor and you hear these wonderful practice sessions going on and teaching sessions with all the great masterpieces of the repertoire firing from different rooms as you walk down the corridor, and you think, oh, that's good, who's that? You know, and so it's such a big difference. I taught privately for many years, and sometimes at my old university as well, but I did a lot of private teaching, so that's very kind of sheltered. And to come to the RNCM, it gives it a different dimension, because you have your one-to-one with the student, which is the most important thing, but there's this great big world going on around you all the time. And I think the students are very close to the real musical world, which is out there, the real world of performing. We nurture them to prepare for group performance classes, recital classes, competitions, gradually getting them ready for the performances they'll have to give. And I think the process here is very good for that. I find when my colleagues are such wonderful musicians, and I love to read their comments on my students' performances. I learned such a lot from that, and it's very interesting to hear the different opinions. As you say, I've been in chamber music now for many years. That's been the main part of my profession, and in chamber music, there are a lot of arguments, like the young lady said about her trio. There are a lot of arguments, and it can be quite difficult, but I always feel that when something's been thrashed out in the open, some kind of synthesis comes through, and it might not be one person's view or another person's view, but there's some kind of synthesis, and it's improved because of what we've been discussing. And I find that the same with students. We'll have all kinds of students, very shy students or very confident students, extrovert, and so the teacher has to adapt to all those different personalities and prepare them and guide them through the course. I think the course is very well developed to give the pianists the equipment they need for the profession. It's a balanced repertoire, and it has enough freedom for them, like Adam says, to choose various aspects. The piano repertoire is so vast, we can't, any of us can't possibly hope to play it all. Even Claudio Arrau had to give up trying to play it all. So it's I think it's a marvelous stepping stone from the young person who's mad about the piano to coming up to becoming a member of the music world out there. I know that young students these days have already careers. You know, when I taught at Chetham's, they all had diaries. I never had a diary till I was 23. And they all have diaries, and they've just come back from Brussels or wherever, you know. And the online teaching recently has been very interesting, actually. I didn't know what to expect, but actually, I don't know how long we're going to have to continue with this, but it's been very absorbing, a bit like recording in a way, taking you very close to the music and not wasting any time at all. Which of course, but I think the lesson lengths at the RNCM are very good. 1.5 hours is a very mature length, and a lot can be achieved. Yeah, so I'm very glad to have taught for so long, and if it has been over 20 years, it's just flown by for me.
Thank you so much, Ben. That's terrific. Thank you very much. Adam, I was just wondering, how are we doing with the chat? Is there anything we should open up to the floor so that we can have a chat about it?
Yeah, well, I'd encourage people alongside putting questions in the chat that now might be a good time to actually shout out any questions that, if that's all right, Graham, that
Yeah,
people might have. Just literally hold your finger down on the space bar and bark something into the air, and we'll answer it. And while people get ready for that, I might answer some of these questions vocally. How many lessons do postgraduates get per year? Graham, would you mind taking on that one?
Okay. Postgraduates get a total of 35 hours tuition throughout the whole of the year. Now, the teaching, that works out approximately 1 hour and a quarter per week. So it's 35 hours per year, and it works out 1 hour and a quarter every week.
Cool. And what about the undergraduate? As Izzy's just asked a similar question.
The undergraduates will be getting 36 hours of tuition throughout the whole of the year. So it's slightly more than the postgraduates, but they get 36 hours of tuition throughout the whole of the year.
Mm-hmm. Caitlin has asked a spicy question here. What is unique about the RNCM keyboard department compared to the London conservatoires?
I think the pace of life in Manchester is very different from London. I think it's a much more friendly and supportive environment in Manchester than it is in London. That's a tricky question. Does anybody else have a view on that? Helen, what do you think?
I mean, I think if we compare, I think, first of all, when we're talking about the keyboard department, I think one of the things that all students wish for when they're going to a place is that they can build up a really strong relationship with their tutor, with their principal study tutor. And I think, I'm not making any comparisons here, but I think that because of this friendliness, there is a very strong collaboration between all the teachers and their students. I think you'll notice that Nina said at the beginning that when she needed some support in any way, it's a small enough, I mean, it seems a big department, but it feels a family sort of community department where, yes, you can run off an email to Graham or to Adam in this case, or in fact, anyone, and everyone will help you with that cause. So I think that's really important. And I think that one of the other things within keyboard departments, but of course all departments, but for pianists particularly, is the possibility to perform. I mean, that is really key to, right, your principal study tuition, you want that, definitely, you want a good relationship, but you also want to know you can perform. And I think the number of opportunities up here are absolutely extraordinary, from in every way. Like, tutors can put on studio classes as often as they want in all the performing spaces. That's fantastic, and there's lots of availability for that. We have all the possibilities, performance within the department, lots of different performances, master classes and all those things, and I know other places have that. But also we have all, I think Adam's just hinted at this when he talks about Spotlight and Monday series, and you know what we look forward to when we kind of have audiences again, but the students put themselves forward to our arts centre to be able to represent and to play to the public. And the Monday series, for instance, is absolutely extraordinary. You can get a full hall and be playing for 20 minutes because you put yourself forward for that. So there's just an incredible number of performing opportunities for students.
I mean, one thing that we have every year is a keyboard festival. And in that festival, we've done the complete Beethoven sonatas, complete Haydn sonatas. We did a Scarlatti marathon. We did the complete works of Frédéric Chopin across 2.5 days. We've done a folk festival. We've done a Messiaen festival. Last year, we did an ensemble festival, having students playing piano duo and piano duet with their tutors. So the performance opportunities, I think, as a result of being one of the biggest arts centres in the UK, I think the performance opportunities are really second to none. And I think there's a real nurturing environment that we've got at the RNCM. Everybody absolutely knows everybody. There's that friendliness that maybe people don't have the time for in London, but I don't really know.
Just one other thing, Graham, sort of allied to that, is the fact that because of this, we offer opportunities on a very, very fair basis for master classes and all the big opportunities. It's not like only 2 or 3 people studying with certain teachers get those opportunities. It's always been given very fairly to students. And I think that's an important factor, because that doesn't always happen everywhere. So you'll see that in a year of master classes, there could be up to, even really big master classes, you have a lot of different students getting those opportunities. It's never just the same 4 students getting them. So I hope that helps.
That's absolutely right. I mean, this term we had 3 masterclasses, Noriko Ogawa, Pascal Roger, and Jean-F. Lambavazé. They each listened to 4 students, and there was no repetition between those classes whatsoever. So there was 12 opportunities for students to play. In the spring term, we had 12 visitors to the college. We had Garrick Olson, we had Stephen Osborne, we had Stephen Huff, we had Jean-F. Lambavazé. There was 12 visitors, and all the opportunities, again, they were spread out amongst all the tutors who were coming in to give lessons and masterclasses. I emailed the school at the start of the term. I let everybody know who is going to be coming in to be giving a masterclass or to teach some one-to-one lessons. And it's quite amazing. I think last year we had about 67 different opportunities, and that literally went to 67 different students. So it really does get spread out. And we have a big variety of tutors who come to the college. Yes, we do have the star names. We've had Lang Lang, we've had Sir Andras Schiff, but we also have a lot of exchange teachers come to the college, a lot from the Baltic states. We also had John Mortensen who came on a Fulbright scholarship from America recently, and he was giving classes on improvisation. So it's very broad, it's very wide, and it's open to absolutely everybody.
I'd like to take on a couple of questions from the chat, if that's okay. One of them is about whether or not auditions will be online. And the answer is annoyingly vague, I guess, because we're working on it. And the information will be put up on our website before the applications open on July 16th. I think it's fair to say that we want to adopt our usual practice of meeting students. I mean, absolutely, that's what we want to do. It may not be possible because of the situation, but that doesn't mean we can't get to know you in another way, i.e. by picking up the phone and having a conversation. So yeah, there may be a process of submitting recordings, but it's not going to make it any less of a personal experience, I hope, and we'll work to make sure that it doesn't, but we'll keep you updated. The other question here is, are there any opportunities to play the organ at the RNCM? We have a fabulous organ in the concert hall. We don't have a principal study organ program, but one of our staff pianists, Jonathan Scott, if you're an organ aficionado, you would have heard of him because he gets thousands and thousands of YouTube views for every single one of his organ concerts. And he's a really good person to have around the building. So yeah, not principal study, but other opportunities, yes, for sure.
It's possible to take the organ as a second study. If you come as a pianist and you wish to take some organ lessons, then we can actually line you up with an organ teacher. And there is an additional payment for those lessons, but it is actually possible to study the organ alongside the piano. Great. Have we come to the end of the questions, Adam?
Well, I mean, in my fury to answer them all, I'm conscious I may have missed one or two. So if I have, please shout, please type, please, well, I was going to say wave. I mean, you can raise your hand, can't you? That's a possibility. Has anyone got any more questions? Students, did I miss, or did we miss out anything that you think we ought to have said? Because it's possible that teachers make mistakes.
Did I mention that we have a workings of the piano class, which happens for first year undergraduates, so that all our undergraduates learn how a piano is constructed, they learn how it is maintained, they would have an idea how to tune a piano and also how to voice a piano. This is really very important information that every pianist should have. We have harpsichord class for our first year undergraduates, and we have forte piano class for our second year undergraduates. And then we have electives between jazz piano and contemporary piano, which I think we've already touched on. So I think we're almost there. Let me just check the chat one last time.
While you do that, Graham, I'll just say another advantage I would say of the Royal Northern is that we are the top rated conservatoire for research. Research is one of these sort of scary words that no one really understands, even the researchers. But essentially what it means is there is loads going on, and it's showcased on a Wednesday afternoon, people finding out new things about music, new historical discoveries, new ways of composing, new ways of making performances happen. Particularly interesting during this online period. We're still having our Wednesday sessions, and they're live on YouTube every Wednesday afternoon if you want to check them out. It just means that this is a really enterprising sort of powerhouse of a building to study in, and it's been rated and recognised internationally for that reason.
Could I just say one more thing, if that's okay?
Please do.
Sorry, I'm thinking about the question where it was the comparing the London Conservatoires to the Royal Northern. I think I was in a really similar situation to that myself. And I think the main thing is all these conservatoires, I mean, in the UK, you've got Scottish, Welsh, all over. In the end, they're all music conservatoires, they're all musicians, and by the end of the degree, you all come out with a degree in piano, or you're a musician. And I think what's important is what you do with that degree, because I think a lot of people are scared to enter the music world because, I don't know, if you're going to study something like law or become a doctor, generally it's a very secure job. But I think at the RNCM, what makes it really stand out is the fact, because not only is it really friendly, but you've got so many piano workshops and so many performance opportunities that it builds you up to leave the RNCM as a better musician and a more, I think, just a stable person in general. And you learn I remember one of our lectures was, how do you, I don't know, make a career in music? You're not just going to make a career by just playing in your room all day and hoping to become a concert pianist after it. So, when I was talking to my other friends at conservatoires, some of them were still unsure, like they're at conservatoire because they enjoy music and that's their passion, but they're not actually, they're not sure what they're going to do afterwards, which is totally okay. But I think it's the fact that the RNCM want to make sure that you know what you're doing, and they're very realistic about your future in music. So it kind of makes you feel more, you know what you're doing. Like, I think I was lucky enough to go to a specialist music school, so I've been very well prepared to go to conservatoire. But I have a lot of friends that I've made at the Royal Northern who, they have very good piano teachers, but they didn't go to a specialist music school, so they weren't put into that routine. But I've even noticed with them, as soon as they came to the Royal Northern, they already have an idea of, how to get concert opportunities, not just within Manchester, but, try and get concerts back home, up in Scotland, Wales, wherever in the country. So yeah, I just think that's what really makes Royal Northern so distinct, because they actually care about what you do, and they want to make sure that you know exactly what you're doing, and they're very realistic. And I think it prepares you really well in the long run as a musician when you're entering the big world, really. That's all.
Thank you very much, Nina. Does anybody else have any more questions before we wrap up this session? I think this may be the last call for questions. Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm a graduate of the RNCM. It's a very special place for me. I regard sort of every day as a real privilege to be able to head up the school that gave me so much in my career. And it's a wonderful situation to be in, to be able to watch students grow and flourish in the school that I hold so dearly to me. If you have, was that one more question that came in there, Adam? That's okay. I think we're there.
I think we've done it. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
I hope that you've had you've managed to get all your questions answered. And I should like to thank our students who presented today, to Nina, Keelan, Jasmine and Louis, and also to Helen, Adam and Ben for speaking so warmly about the college. And thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well done, Adam. Managing that at the same time.
My fingers were on fire. I know.
I mean, it was hard enough to multitask, to listen and to read everything, but to think you were actually writing everything at the same time. It's like, well, impressive. Yeah. Thought it went very well, Graham.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you, Helen. You were perfect. I couldn't have asked for more.
Absolutely.
And
Really...
Adam and Jasmine, you were terrific as well, and so nice to hear you speak so warmly about the college. And Ben, fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, not going to a music conservatoire and then ending up teaching in one.
I forgot to say what I wanted to say, which was the joy you get from your student success is the greatest joy in the world.
Yeah.
More than any personal joy.
Yeah.
It's true, isn't it?
It is the biggest personal joy. Yeah. Anyway, never mind.
Great.
Well,
Okay.
thank you very much again. That was really good. We were on for an hour, which is pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
They thought the session would be 30 minutes, but I could see the chat was just on fire here.
Yeah, I think the students sort of prefer to ask questions in that way when they've got the camera off. I should have predicted that, really. It got really busy.
I think it's quite interesting because, I mean, having done these open days with Graham for so many years, Graham, we've often had real difficulty getting people to actually ask questions, haven't we? Because this is more anonymized. This is so much easier. Whereas if they're in a room with people, they get quite nervous, and then they would catch us afterwards just to ask us that question.
They get a bit self-conscious, don't they, in a big room?
Self-conscious. So it's really interesting to see how much more it can flow. This is interesting about Zoom, actually, on online stuff, isn't it? People actually feel a bit more comfortable with it to ask lots of questions. And yeah.
I mean, that idea of having something on the screen and then something, a sort of feed alongside, is really the way that everyone digests media now.
Yeah.
One thing to focus on is not enough.
Yes,
We
yes.
just have to find ways to do it when we go back, I think. This is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really
do. All the right stuff, I hope.
Pardon?
I didn't make any mistakes. Good, okay.
It was happening so fast. I was like, wow, really? Oh, okay.
I had to speak. I was almost out of breath.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
There's a lady there called Rosie Sutton. Do you know her, Jasmine, from the uni?
I'm not sure.
I taught her when she was 11. As she reminded me in a private message. A bit of a shock. Oh. Yeah.
Very good.
Oh, good. Very good.
Okay, well, I'm going to go and do some teaching now. So see you all soon.
Thank you, Helen.
Helen.
Bye.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you, Ben.
Cheers. Bye for now. Well done, Graham.
Thank you, Ben.
See ya.
Cool.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yep. Yeah, I thought it was really good.
I mean, what I don't get is that there was a great big long list of people who registered, but that long list didn't transpire in the chat, in the Zoom, which maybe is to be expected.
Yeah, I mean, I think with any of these activities, it's going to be, I mean, you know, when you're doing it from home, I mean, with 1,000,001 other distractions, it just feels less formal. So yeah, they sign up for it, but then it's a bit sort of whatever.
Yeah.
There were certainly lots of people there and lots of people engaging.
Yeah, I mean, the level of engagement was amazing. It was, I thought we would get 15 minutes in and, you know, there wouldn't be a single question.
No, they were good questions as well. They were good.
I thought the students were absolutely fabulous.
They're always really good, I think. Fantastic.
I mean, they're so loyal to the institution and they speak so warmly about it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, Nina was just terrific.
She was, wasn't she? Now, I have to admit, after our little meeting on Friday, I sort of thought, oh, I wonder, just between you and me, and it's tricky because it's still being recorded and this mustn't go anywhere, but I wonder.
I can turn the recording off. Hold
on.
on.
It's too early in the course, perhaps, but it wasn't at all. She was magnificent.